Hi everyone, this is Southernbelle74 and welcome to National News. I'm going to give you news that you can use. We're going to first begin with the CDC. They have given us a warning about a new fungal infection that's been going around, and the cases have started to spike in the United States. So let's get into this warning from the CDC.
A potentially deadly infection from a fungus is spreading, with the CDC now sounding the alarm tonight, warning people this is serious for older folks, like if you have a parent or a grandparent in a nursing home. Cases of what's called CRS tripling between 2020 and 2021. And part of what's so concerning here is that it's not easy to treat. This kind of infection is resistant to most drugs. I want to show you how much it's been spreading since 2016, from 4 states then reporting cases to 21 states now. Nobody is in freak out mode yet, to be clear. This is still rare. It's not a threat to folks who are otherwise generally healthy. Dr. John Torres is with me now to break this down. And Dr. John, while it is not like freak out mode yet, there is a concern that this, and I don't want to overstate it here, but the worry that perhaps this could develop into the next MRSA. I think people know that as that sort of drug-resistant infection that you can pick up and that can be pretty scary.
And Hallie, the thing of it is the World Health Organization said this is a global issue, so not just here in the U.S., but around the globe. And since 2016, we started to see these cases expand and expand. For most of us who are healthy, have intact immune systems, not an issue, because the fungus has a hard time getting into our body, and if it does, our immune system can fight it very well. But for those who are in nursing home, long-term care facilities, if they have invasive procedures done, if they have IV catheters inside, if they're on a ventilator, the fungus can get inside that way, and their immune systems are weak and can't fight it off. And so that is part of the problem there. So what can you do about it as a regular person? Well, number one, stay as healthy as possible. That's the obvious thing to say. But if you have a loved one inside one of these facilities, talk to the facility about their procedures, because this is what we call a nosocomial infection. In other words, a nurse or an aide will get it from one patient and accidentally take it to another patient. And the authors of the study say they think this is happening because during the pandemic, the COVID procedures were essentially different procedures than you needed to keep this clean. And so they're saying there's an issue right there. Hopefully that's being corrected, Hallie.
What's interesting.
All right, guys. As the CDC learns more about this, I'll keep you guys updated. Let's move on to our next news topic, and it's spring break time. Well, I guess they're getting a little bit out of hand down in Miami Beach. So let's have a look.
Tonight, a city in shock after a deadly weekend in Miami Beach.
This whole crowd of people just ran past us, probably about 50.
Gunfire first ringing out on Friday night on the iconic Ocean Drive. The crowd of spring breakers celebrating St. Patrick's Day sent running for their lives.
Someone decided to just start shooting, and then everyone started running.
One person killed, another critically injured, and a suspect taken into custody, with police seizing 4 firearms. Then, less than 48 hours later,
they're giving that boy CPR.
A second shooter opening fire on the same strip early Sunday morning. One more person killed.
The unruly nature of too many in the presence of guns has created a peril that cannot go unchecked.
The mayor of Miami Beach declaring a state of emergency and imposing a curfew on all of South Beach, the affected area, including multiple party streets. Businesses forced to close by 11:59 p.m., with hotels allowed to provide services only to guests and restaurants only allowed delivery after midnight. Yet just hours before the curfew went into effect, video shared with NBC Miami by a witness shows people jumping on occupied cars as the city struggles to control ruckus crowds in the streets. The Sunday night curfew expiring this morning, but tonight the city convening an emergency commission meeting to consider another curfew next week.
These aren't spring breakers, they're lawbreakers.
Officials also discussing other measures for the rest of the season and in future years, even considering metal detectors at entries to problem areas to curb gun violence.
I don't view any other option at this point than doing metal detectors. There's literally zero option. I'm telling you right now, I am going to fight for that to the core.
But they voted against a new curfew, only adding a restriction to the sale of liquor after 6 p.m. at stores. Drinking on premises at bars and restaurants will still be allowed. The spring break destination now grappling with a path forward.
We're definitely walking everywhere, expecting the worst. If we come out here later tonight, then yeah, you never know what you're going to get.
After a weekend of deadly violence.
Guad Venegas joins us now. Guad, as you mentioned in your story in the emergency meeting, they just voted against the new curfew, but you also mentioned the vice mayor of Miami Beach is pushing for metal detectors in South Beach. How exactly would something like that work?
Ellison, they brought up examples of Disney World, Universal Studios, and also a big music festival that happens in Miami and how they use metal detectors, and they've been able to tighten security this way. Yet there are concerns with the legality and the constitutional rights when it comes to having metal detectors in public spaces. Remember, this is a public street. So the city attorney brought up the idea of perhaps having a ticketed event sponsored by the city, fencing off this entire area where a lot of this violence has happened, and having tickets for as low as $1. And that way they could then install these metal detectors and then, of course, go through all the logistics of fencing up the area. And maybe that could solve the issues when it comes to the gun violence that we've seen here in Miami Beach. But, of course, as you can hear, it is a very difficult plan. For now, what we have is this decision to not sell alcohol after 6 p.m. at these stores going into next weekend. Authorities hoping that the crowd might behave in a different way.
Thanks for watching our.
All right, guys. Seems like it's a lot going on down in Miami. Let's move on and talk about cruises. There has been a cruise ship outside of Galveston, Texas, where some of the crew as well as passengers have become sick. Let's find out what's going on down there.
Well, the CDC is investigating after more than 300 people on board a Galveston cruise ship are now sick, battling an illness called norovirus. Fox 26's Natalie He joining us live from Galveston, where the ship returned a few days ago. Natalie.
That's right. It was a Princess cruise ship that departed and returned to Galveston this past Sunday. Now, according to CDC data, nearly 13% of passengers and crew members on board that ship have reported getting sick. And today we spoke to one of those people.
We did a mother-daughter's trip. My mom's birthday's tomorrow.
A quick getaway cruise to celebrate their mom's 76th birthday was quickly spoiled after Kim Holt and her family started getting sick.
Right now, I have stomach cramps in my stomach. I feel nauseous and shaky.
Kim was one of 4,000 people on board the Ruby Princess cruise ship that left Galveston on February 26th and returned last Sunday on March 5th. The CDC says now more than 300 of those passengers and crew members are reporting symptoms of vomiting, diarrhea, and fatigue after an apparent outbreak of what's called norovirus.
When they first announced it, they said they had like 20 people, and then like the next day it was like 30 and then 100, and so it spread pretty quick.
This is a highly contagious virus that can contaminate food or water. It also contaminates oysters naturally. Typically on a cruise ship, especially if it's kind of a buffet style eating, where if norovirus gets into one of the food items, anybody consuming that food item at the buffet obviously is a risk. And not only that, ships are close quarters, so this is a highly contagious virus. It only takes a few virus particles to become infected.
In a statement, a spokesperson with Princess Cruises said in part, quote, at the first sign of an increase in the number of passengers reporting to the medical center with gastrointestinal illness, we immediately initiated additional enhanced sanitation procedures to interrupt the person-to-person spread of the virus. Measures like thorough disinfection of high-touch surfaces like railings, door handles, and elevator buttons. As an additional precaution, the ship underwent an additional disinfection on March 5th in Galveston ahead of its next departure.
All right, guys. I hope that they feel better. When it comes to viruses, you can never tell. So let's move into our next story. And this one is pretty sad. It happened today. It was a horrible car crash where 6 people have perished. Let's get into it.
It is horrible. Like, it is
horrible. I did not know that noise was from this, so it's bad.
Drivers and neighbors say that it's hard to believe that 6 people are now dead after this crash on Interstate 695 that shut down all traffic in both directions Wednesday afternoon. Police say that around 12:40, a gray Acura drove into a work zone on 695 near Security Boulevard. It went between 2 Jersey walls and it hit several construction workers before it flipped. Medics took that driver to shock trauma. Now they think a second vehicle may be involved.
It's just a shame. You know, you go out there for a day's work and then you don't know what's going to happen. And the way people have been driving up and down, even with construction, they still think it's a raceway.
Bridget Brown's son was on the Beltway when it happened and sat in traffic for more than an hour.
Sad. It's just sad. It could have been my son. You know, he was just there. He's only about maybe 300 yards from here. It could have been my son. I just thank God that it's not him.
She called him while he sat in traffic.
It must have happened not too long before I got here, because at first when we was driving, it was a smooth road, and then out of nowhere, it kind of like cars like would stop, but I couldn't hear anything at the moment, and then everybody came to a standstill.
It's still unclear what led to the crash, but state police are urging drivers to pay attention and be cautious when driving past work zones or a stopped vehicle.
If a motorist sees a pedestrian or sees, people in a work zone performing their daily tasks, it's important to be cognizant, maybe slow down, just be on alert, because these types of incidents obviously can end up tragic if somebody's not paying attention or if you're violating the law in any way, whether speeding or distracted driving.
Thanks for watching our.
All right, guys, prayers to all those involved. Let's move on to California, where they just cannot get a break when it comes to this weather. They've had a bomb cyclone that's been wreaking havoc all through the state of California. Let's get into this news clip.
California can't catch a break. The state is dealing with the effects of more severe weather after massive bomb cyclone moved through.
It is a mixed bag of weather woes. We're talking about wind damage, flood watches, and heaps of snow. Jeff Paul has more from Los Angeles.
The Golden State greeting spring with yet another big storm. Forecasters say a bomb cyclone brought strong winds, heavy rain, and massive snowfall to cities and towns up and down the California coast. The winds causing significant damage, especially in central and northern California, where gusts of up to 80 miles an hour were reported. It was strong enough to blow windows out of skyscrapers in San Francisco.
It's been a crazy year as far as rain already, and the winds have been pretty consistent, sometimes with the rain, but I've never heard of 80-mile-an-hour winds.
And all that rain is causing flooding in areas still drenched from previous storms that have cycled through at a near nonstop pace since late December. 3 to 6 inches of rain falling in the Los Angeles area, prompting flood watches until Wednesday evening.
Water is still seeping through these structures, these roadways, and they're getting that constant action. So our maintenance crews will be on constant monitoring, most likely throughout the rest of this year.
The snow remains another major concern. Here in Southern California, communities in the San Bernardino Mountains already dealing with the massive piles of snow got even more on Tuesday. And farther north, they're bracing for the storm to roll into the Sierras, which has already gotten 55 feet so far this season.
I've never seen snow like this, and I grew up on the East Coast. This is a lot of snow.
The storm is now moving east, prompting winter storm warnings in Arizona and Nevada. In Los Angeles, Jeff Paul, Fox 13 News.
All right. Thank you, Fox 13, for that. I appreciate it. All right. Let's go into our final story of this live stream. And it's about 2 inmates who were able to escape jail only to go to IHOP and be recaptured. Man, you can't make this stuff up. Let's get into it.
This is the Newport News Jail Annex, and it is an extension of the main jail used when needed. It is considered medium security and was home to 43-year-old Arlie Nemo and 37-year-old John Garza, who were both discovered missing from their cell on Monday night. The Newport News Sheriff's Office gave us this picture of the hole-through brick Nemo and Garza allegedly cut to escape. with primitive tools using a toothbrush and a metal object. That hole is positioned and consistent with what we found, taking our own pictures of where that hole was, which is now covered with a street sign. The sheriff's report says once outside, but still within the containment wall, Nemo and Garza scaled a wall and fled. To this Mercury Boulevard IHOP, 5.2 miles away. We don't know how they got here, but an employee recognized Nemo's bald head from the news.
One of the employers came to me and said, I think that's one of the guys who escaped. And I said, are you serious? I said, if it is, you need to call the police and let them know.
And about that time, a customer also mentioned Nemo's escape status, at which point this employee said, everyone in the back.
One of the customers had mentioned it to us, and I said, everybody come to the back, let's call the police. So that's when we called the police, but I made everyone come to the back.
Police arrived and arrested both men without incident.
It makes it feel a little safe.
My goodness. All right, guys. As you know, recently we just had the Oscar award ceremony, and I'm just going to close out with some footage from the red carpet. You know how I like to do my award shows. Also, we're going to close out with our mantra for this year, and it is, if you don't change, don't expect your life to either. All right, guys, stay tuned. All right, guys, and that was the fashions from this year's Oscars red carpet. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.